Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Trek Mission Log. My name is Jason Gilbert. I thank you for joining me here today. We are on a journey through every Star Trek episode, animated episode, and film ever made. What I do is I offer a synopsis, an analysis, and opinion on each episode. So these are, in effect, episode reviews. So if this is your first time, welcome. Please check out my previous videos. I've covered completely all of Season 1 of the original series, and we are currently now early in Season 2. I ask if you enjoy this content, would you do me the honor of becoming a subscriber? It would really mean a lot to me personally, and it would help my channel out immensely. Also, I am on Instagram at Trek Mission Log, and we can interact with each other there as well. I do get a lot of spam messages and a lot of bot messages. So if you want to message me directly there, please indicate that you are a viewer of Trek Mission Log, and I'll be happy to connect with you and discuss Star Trek with you. Now today we're going to be taking a close look at the original series, Season 2, Episode 5, titled The Apple. It was released on October the 13th, 1967. The episode was written by Max Ehrlich, directed by Joseph Pevney, and produced by Gene L. Kuhn. So check out this piece of trivia unique to this episode, and in just a moment we'll come back and dive in. The episode begins with a landing party beaming down to Gamma Trianguli 6, lush with flowers and vegetation. Kirk said that a scout ship came through this sector reported some strange readings from this planet. Starfleet wanted them to investigate and make contact with the inhabitants. Chekhov said that it reminds him of Russia. McCoy said it was more like the Garden of Eden, which Chekhov said was located in Russia, right outside of Moscow. They begin to head for a village. Suddenly, a metallic-colored flower turns in the direction of two guards who are taking readings. One guard sees it and calls the captain, and just then, it spit out some spores on him. This, by the way, is a new series record of a red-shirted crewman dying at 2 minutes and 8 seconds into the episode. Now, someone is hiding behind the plants and is spying on them. Kirk stands up, very angry, and said, "What did somebody say? That paradise must have looked like this?" And we then fade to the title sequence. When we come back, Kirk is communicating with Scotty. He reported the death and told Scotty to beam the body up once they are away from it. Scotty said that there is something off with the antimatter pods and that he's looking into it. Spock comes up to Kirk and said he's picking up subsurface vibrations in all directions. They are strong, regular, and artificially produced. Kirk orders a guard named Mallory to make a full reconnaissance of the area and to avoid danger. Spock then hears something and tells Kirk that it is a humanoid hiding behind them. Kirk sends a guard to investigate. Kirk decides to move ahead to the village, and as they go, they are being watched. They stumble upon some strange-looking rocks. Spock picks one up to analyze it. It very easily breaks in half. And when he throws the other half away, it causes a very violent explosion. Kirk said, "A Garden of Eden with landmines." Very clever. Meanwhile, Scotty calls down to the landing party and reports to Kirk that the antimatter pods are now completely inert. There's a beam of some sort coming from the village that they are heading to that is causing it to happen. Spock said that could be the subsurface vibrations that he is picking up. McCoy then shows Kirk the yellow thorns that killed their guard. Another metallic-looking flower is looking their way. Spock notices it, pushes Kirk and McCoy out of the way, but it spits those yellow, deadly needles into Spock's chest, and it causes Spock to collapse. Barely alive, McCoy gives him a hypospray, and he's not responding. McCoy said they have to get him to the ship. Kirk orders a beam up and said to Scott to make arrangements to pick up the two guards that are scouting ahead of them. However, something is interfering with their transporter. Scotty said that the transporter system is inhibited, and the way it is now, they couldn't beam up a fly. Kirk asked Scotty if the trouble with the transporter is tied in with the issues with the antimatter pods, and Scotty said that he is going to investigate. When we come back, Spock sits up and he complains that the hypospray that McCoy gave him turned his stomach. McCoy retorted, "If your blood were red instead of green, you wouldn't have an upset stomach." Kirk said to Spock that whatever they're dealing with is not only after them, but also after the ship. Spock said it would require a highly sophisticated planetary defense system. Just then, the clouds started moving quickly. Thunder is heard, and lightning strikes this poor fellow who is also wearing a red shirt. That is the second red shirt death in this episode, recorded at 12 minutes and 55 seconds in. The rest of the landing party take cover, and then the clouds recede. The guard named Mallory is now near the village, and he reports by communicator to Kirk. And as he's giving his report, something interferes with the communicator. The landing party move to his direction. Mallory is then running away from the village when he happens to step on an exploding rock. Third red shirt gone, 14 minutes and 58 seconds. Kirk is blaming himself for the deaths, and Spock is trying to console him with logic when he notices something. The person or the thing that is following them has happened upon them again. Kirk wants to find out who or what it is. And so as Spock and Chekhov create a diversion, Kirk finds the person spying on him and decks him. The result? The man starts crying. Now, when Kirk asked him why he was following them, the man said that he is the eyes of Vol. Kirk asked who Vol was, and he said Vol is everything. He said his name is Akuda, the leader of the feeders of Vol. Kirk asked to speak with Vol, and Akuda said he speaks for Vol. And Spock notices something fascinating. Akuda has an antenna protruding from behind his ears. And Akuda said they are his ears for Vol. He then said he would take them to his people. Scotty hails Kirk on the communicator, and Scotty has ordered a red alert. Something has grabbed the ship from the planet's surface, and they can't break free. The warp drive is not working, and at impulse power, they do not have enough power to break free. Kirk then gives Scotty the greatest pep talk in all of history. Scotty, you're my chief engineer. You know everything on that ship that there is to know better than the men that designed it. If you can't get those warp engines working, you're fired. Scotty said that he would do everything that there is to do. Kirk asked Akuda for more information about Vol. He said that Vol makes the rains fall and the sun shine, that all good things come from Vol, and Kirk demanded to speak with him. Akuda said he would take them to Vol, but Vol only speaks to him. Akuda is leading the landing party to a cave where the entrance has the image of a serpent. And as Spock was taking his readings, he said that this was an access point to a greater power source beneath the ground. As Spock got closer, he came in contact with the force field, which sent him flying back. Akuda said that Vol was sleeping but will awaken when he is hungry. Maybe then Vol would talk with them. But he offers the landing party to come with him to have food and drink and to rest. Akuda leads them to his village, which really is an ode to simpler times. They live in simple huts and live off the land. He introduces them as the people of Vol. Kirk notices an absence of children, and he asks about that. Akuda said that the word children is unknown to him. When Kirk described him as little ones, Akuda referred to them as replacements and said that Vol forbids it. When Akuda leads them to a hut, he leaves them. Chekhov said that it didn't make sense that at first they were in danger of being killed and now they are being welcomed. Kirk calls up to the ship to ask for an update. Scotty said that they cannot stop what is happening no matter what they do. Kirk gets angry at Scotty and tells him to use his imagination. McCoy brings a report to Kirk that there is an absence of harmful bacteria in the inhabitants, and as a result, the population is not aging. Spock said that the atmosphere blocks out the sun's harmful rays. Just then, the whole village started walking toward Vol. Kirk and Spock follow. They notice people walking into the cave, which means that the force field has been deactivated. Spock said that there is no living being in that cave. It is a machine. And as they stand up to move closer, the eyes of the serpent light up. So they get back down. Spock said that the machine may possess a rudimentary intelligence. Kirk wonders what would happen if Vol gets weakened around feeding time. Kirk tells Spock to order the ship's lab to measure the electromagnetic impulses hour by hour. McCoy then joins them, and he and Spock have a disagreement. McCoy said that humanoids have a right to advance and grow. Spock said they also have a right to choose a system that works for them. Scotty hails Kirk and told him that the readings indicate that the power against the ship is weakening slowly. Now back in the hut, they're having a discussion, and Kirk asked what would happen if one of the inhabitants died. The yeoman who was there said that they would need a replacement, and a humorous discussion was had about how that would take place. At the cave, Akuda appears to be receiving instructions from Vol. He acknowledged that he understood Vol's orders and will carry them out. Meanwhile, Chekhov and the yeoman are having a romantic rendezvous while some of the village is observing them. They are seeing for the first time displays of affection. They then walk away and try kissing for the first time and agree that it was a pleasurable experience for them. However, Akuda caught them and said that the law is the law. Vol communicates with Akuda and said that the visitors are dangerous. He will meet with the men in the clear place once the visitors are asleep. Now, in that meeting, Akuda told the men that Vol told him that they are to kill the strangers. Since the men never heard of killing, Akuda demonstrated it to them with a large melon-type fruit. He took a heavy stick and bashed it to pieces and said, "This is how you kill them." Spock and Kirk are discussing the situation. Kirk said that these people are not living, they're only existing to service a machine. Spock said to interfere, in his opinion, would violate the non-interference directive. Kirk said he would take his chances with Starfleet's discipline, but these people need them to interfere. Spock notices then that the people have disappeared, and so the landing party go out to investigate. They go to the cave where Kirk makes an attempt to speak to Vol. As Kirk speaks, the clouds begin moving again. The lightning comes down and appears to have partially struck Spock. Kirk picks him up and takes him back to the village where McCoy treats him. As the fourth guard comes running in, he is attacked and he is killed, having his head bashed in. That's at the 40-minute, 51-second mark. This guard outlasted the others. What a man. The people of Vol then begin attacking, but the landing party defend themselves. Kirk stops this one with a powerful Shatner chop, and all of the attackers have been subdued and are unconscious. Spock at this point makes a very profound statement, and he said McCoy was concerned that these people were not living as humans do. There's now no cause for worry. They have taken their first step, a reference to the killing of the guard. Kirk orders that all the people be taken to the huts. Scotty calls down and says that all power has been diverted to the engines and they have 12 minutes to make their attempt to break free. Kirk orders them to give it full reverse, and they were able to pull away a little, but they gained only an hour. Scotty said there's nothing more that he can do. You'll have to fire me. And at that moment, Kirk said, "You're fired." At that moment, Val summoned the people to be fed. Kirk said that the people need to be stopped feeding Vol. Kirk calls up to Scotty and told him to lock phasers down here. And their plan seems to be working. Vol is getting weaker the hungrier it gets. Kirk orders Scotty to fire the phasers and to maintain firing. And at that point, Vol is weakening. Kirk calls up to Scotty, tells him to cease fire. Spock took readings. Vol is now generating no power at all. Vol is dead. The ship's systems are starting to return to normal, and so Kirk tells Scotty he's rehired. Kirk told the village that they now have to think for themselves and learn how to build and to garden and to innovate, and he vows that the Federation would be there to help them. With the ship now fully operational, the landing party is back on the ship, and Kirk comes upon an argument between McCoy and Spock. They were arguing about whether they did the right thing on the planet. Spock then reminds Kirk of the biblical story of Genesis, how Adam and Eve tasted the apple and as a result were driven out of paradise. Spock said, in a manner of speaking, they have given the people of Vol the apple, the knowledge of good and evil, and as a result, they too have been driven out of their paradise. Kirk asked if Spock was casting him in the role of Satan, and Spock denied it. Then he said, "Is there anybody on this ship that even remotely looks like Satan?" A reference to Spock's pointed ears. Spock said he cannot think of anybody on the ship that fits that description, and after a laugh, the Enterprise sails off to her next mission. The Apple was an interesting episode with an interesting premise that, in my opinion, lacked the luster it needed to put it over the top as an amazing episode. So let's go through some things. First of all, the story itself was really good. As a Christian, I was pleased to see that it was rife with biblical references, however loosely, but the parallels between the planet Gamma Trianguli 6 and the Garden of Eden are there. However, this planet was far from paradise. There were killer plants, there were explosive rocks, and it all pointed to the fact that this was not a natural environment, but a controlled environment. The people worshipped an entity, but it turned out to be a machine. The cave where Val was, in my opinion, looked pretty cool. As a kid, I used to watch He-Man, and this cave kind of reminded me a little bit of Snake Mountain. I had that toy as a kid. So the story itself is good. I think the way it plays out on screen lacks. It is slowly paced. In certain spots, it is poorly acted. The red shirts take a huge beating in this episode. 4 more dead. In each episode where they die, they are officers that we have never seen before, and so it takes the emotion out of it for the viewer. Kirk showed emotion over the loss, though. But to tell you the truth, I felt that Shatner's performance in this episode was a little over the top. I did not like the way that he treated his chief engineer. If you don't fix this, you're fired. Scotty was between a rock and a hard place. And throughout the episode, Kirk was pretty grumpy. I think that the real reason he was grumpy was because Chekhov got to kiss the yeoman instead of him. But he did get to take his aggression out on a villager with a powerful Shatner chop. There's plenty of arguing between McCoy and Spock, and that is always a good plus in any Star Trek episode. It was good to see Chekhov given more of a role. However, this time he was in a romance with a yeoman that we have never seen before, and they wanted us to believe that they had a meaningful relationship. And to my knowledge, and I stand to be corrected, we never see or hear of her again. So much for that. I will say that their display of affection had an impact on a couple of villagers, and for the first time, they allowed themselves to feel that emotion of affection and touch. But that scene was very long and drawn out. It took several minutes to play out. The special effects in this episode were good. The lightning and clouds were especially impressive. It added an element of peril to an episode that was dragging. I also think that it would have helped this episode for us to see what the machine Val looked like, and for Akuta to see that as well, that he was not communicating with God, but with a machine. But we never got to see what Val looked like beyond the entrance to the cave. Also, Uhura and Sulu were completely absent from this episode, and their absence is very, very noticeable. So because of all of this, I decided to give the Apple 2 out of 5 Starfleet insignias for awesomeness. It could have been so much more, but sadly it wasn't. If you missed this one, you're not missing much. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Trek Mission Log. I hope that you enjoyed it. I would love to read your comments, so please feel free to leave some below. Would love to see your opinions of this episode and of my analysis of it. Even if you think I'm out to lunch, please go ahead and leave a comment. I love reading them, and I try to respond to all of them. And I want to invite you to join me next time as I get to review another absolutely superb episode of Star Trek The Original Series titled The Doomsday Machine. And I absolutely love that one. So be sure to tune in for that. Well, until next time, my friends, live long and prosper.